Hey, what's up, everyone? My name's Lionel. I'm your host for LT Productions, and you are watching I Watch You Watch. We are covering a returning series called Beauty in Black, currently streaming on Netflix. It's already number one. I'm glad it's back because I've been wanting to see how the stories have taken place, and I'm glad that you're here with me. Thank you for your support. Please like this video. You can also subscribe if you are new. Welcome in. And you can also leave your comments below. Now let's get into it. All right. So you know where we left off with Beauty in Black. I don't think I finished recording because I just kept falling behind on even getting videos out to you. And I apologize. To the second half, I think I got like 3 videos out, maybe 4. But anyways, this show is so chaotic. It's so insane, and it's just cool that we get to actually have this experience. We start off where we left, and that is when Horace announced Kimmy is his new wife and the new COO of Beauty in Black. The family, they go outside to the waiting room. Horace is at his hospital bed, coughing it up, and Kimmy's like, well, what's going on? How can I help you? Are you all right? He's like, really, no, but hey, I'm so happy in my soul as to what he's been able to pull off, which is getting his wife in and now taking over just so his family that he hates so much is not able to take over the company and do what they want. Horace just starts talking a little bit about the family and how he feels about them, and Rain asks, is the family that bad? And he said yes. The will that they have is what Kimmy wants is, look, thank you for protecting me, but I need you to protect my friend Rain and also Sylvie. He said, well, my father's will is very strict, but this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to add Rain and Sylvie to my will so that they are protected. And he added himself by saying, let's add Angel. And Kimmy said, yeah, I guess, come on. Kimmy now understands that she's going to be their new boss, and she's like, new boss? You really want me to do all this? And he's like, yes, I will train you and all that good stuff. She's like, how am I going to do this? I have the right people in place to help you. Now he wants Kimmy to find Angel. And also, she can go into the house, Rain and Sylvie also. And you're going to be going with Alex. And they were like, does Alex work for Jules? And they weren't trusting that. They weren't having that. They don't want any type of connection. And basically Horace said, he's good. He checked him out. Yes, he works for him. However, because of what we know about him, he cannot just do his own thing. He teaches Kimmy, look, at this point, you really can't trust anyone. I even understand in regards to this whole Alex situation. But what you have to do around here, the reason I chose you is that you are perceptive. But you can't just deal with things more of a head-on situation of what you know, what's in front of you. You have to learn to look around the corners and see everything that potentially can happen before it actually happens so that you can play the game right. And he says the key, at least to winning in this whole game that we got going on, is leverage. Leverage that you can pull to put people in their place. A quote, he says, it's easy to play games with a ninja who looks at what's in front of him. But I'm going to teach you to look around corners and into the future. Leverage is the way. Yeah. So, back outside the hospital doors, the family, specifically Olivia's like, who is that girl? Mallory's like, Roy can tell you. Norman was like, look, my wife is dead and he gets a new wife. Your brother had nothing to do with your wife dying, so oh well, in that regards. Rain comes out. And Jules says, Rain. Jules, she wants Alex. He's been summoned. And Jules says that Alex works for him. And Rain said, well, actually, he's needed there, and Kimmy is your boss, right? Thought so. Then Kimmy comes out. And Jules was like, Kimmy? And then Kimmy was like, that's Mrs. Bellery, mother. I said, go get him! Get him, Kimmy. He deserves it. Olivia gonna say, such foul language. Rain said that there's more than that to come. That could happen. She said, are these two your sons? Oh, then you're okay. You'll manage. As far as the language department. Mallory then introduces herself to Kimmy, putting on that fake bougie, hey. But Kimmy admires Mallory. And I think that's going to be a little bit of her downplay later on in the season or later on in the series, because since she admires her, it may throw her off her game a little bit. And Kimmy summons Barney to Horace's hospital room. The rest of the family, they leave, and Mallory and Roy, they just have it out in the car. These two just ping pong off of each other, trying to outbest each other with the reads, and they deliver every time. You know, Mallory was just kind of like, and Roy was like, what is so funny? She said, this family. You know, if I wasn't married to you, I could have been on a yacht with a billionaire. He said something along the lines like, you would only spend a couple of days there and be bored and all that good stuff. You know you want this life. Then Mallory brings up, you know, you've been sleeping with 304. I'm trying to be YouTube friendly. Wow, she was effing with your dad at the same time. You two got the same 304. And Jules set it up that way. And then Mallory demands that Roy tells her everything. And he does not give in. She says, well, you know I'm going to find out anyways. And then Mallory begins to blame Roy by saying it's all his fault because you were taunting your father. And now he's doing this, and he's going to find a way to get you and your brother out of the will. Of course, Roy doesn't believe that. Okay. So Varney goes to Horace's hospital room, and he assigns Varney to add Sylvie, Rain, and Angel to his will. He also says, tell Kimmy everything. And Kimmy was like, oh, how do I know that he's going to tell me everything? Horace at this point was bothered, and he excuses Varney to go handle that situation so that he could talk to Kimmy alone. And he says, you know, I told you before, don't ask me questions like that in front of other people. He said, let Varney tell you everything. And what he has in his back pocket is that he has 3 other lawyers that he goes and checks out what Varney is saying. He added on that a lot of people think they're jealous of Varney, so you're able to play a lawyer against each other so that you can find out what is truth and what is false. I think that that's a great backup plan. A second opinion that I don't think that a lot of people do use. Of course, a lot of people don't have a lot of resources where they can have all these lawyers on retainer or able to ask questions all the time, you know, because lawyers charge, you know. So, hey, I think it's very smart, though. Kimmy does mention her other problem. She mentions about the stolen car that had the white man that was in the back seat of the car. Horace says, look, I'll handle it. And then she goes on to the house. Varney calls Charles and says, are you at your brother's? And he's like, for what? You really got to take this serious. You got to be there, And he's like, no, I'm going home and I'm going to go take a nap because I'm going out tonight. You tell them I'm telling you. I'm not for sure I forgot what I wrote there. Anyways, so Rain gets discharged from the hospital. She's doing a whole lot better, which is weird, but okay. I never had a BBL, so I don't know. She's just up and walking. The nurse is giving her clothes so she can leave the hospital. Once the nurse leaves, she's asking Rain, like, how do we really trust Horace? And Rain said, we'll be fine. You don't know that? What else do we have to really lean on at this point? He's been showing up and doing a lot of things to help us get out of situations. I mean, he helped rescue your sister, Kimmy, and I think you really need to chill. Rain said, chill. Let's just enjoy this. And there's going to be other reminders throughout the season where Kimmy's just more on edge and not really trusting. But she said, you know, I'm ready to do this. Come on and do this with me, Kimmy. So Alex, the driver, drives Kimmy, Brain, and Sylvie back to the house. It looks like the Valerie family stays in the Indiana area opposed to the Chicago area. Indiana, they touch. They're brothers. They're siblings. So that's, if you want to consider it suburbs, you can, but it's not really suburbs. It's more in the Chicago area, but more out there. But anyways, it's just another city outside of Chicago. Or, well, it's another state, but who knows how long it actually takes. But y'all be traveling too long. But good that you have drivers, just in case you need to fall asleep. Anyways, Kimmy asked Alex, how long have you been working for Jules? He's like, I'm not working for Jules. And then Kimmy asked Brain, do I need to ask him again? Yes. How long have you been working for Jules? So then Brain gets on the dude and was like, what is up with you, dude? She starts calling him a ninja. And Sylvie's like, he's Japanese. Nah, there's something more to him than just being Japanese. What are you? So we find out that he's Japanese, black, and Dutch. See? So then she started calling him a Japan ninja. I said, where did that come from? Lord. Oh, rain. Brain wanted to know who's running Delinda's club. Alex said nobody. It's just random people at this moment trying to help out. They find out that Delinda is gone. But Body is supposed to be in the hospital. And just a little sneak peek if you haven't watched some of the episodes. We still don't know where Body is. Some are saying that she is gone, and others are saying that she's in the hospital. So what is it? I don't know. Alex asks, Rain asks, do you know who Dega is? And he said no. Or where I think it was no. Whatever it was, she mentioned, and Alex didn't really have any information about Dega. So at Roy's home, Roy and Mallory's home, Olivia and Norman have already made it there. And they're going back and forth about this whole situation. Of course, Olivia's very vocal about this whole situation, and Norman ends up bringing up some stuff. Oh, because she started bringing up the club stuff to Norman, and he was bringing up, okay, well, didn't you try to rob him? As far as Horace. And she didn't really want to answer that question. So then he asked, are you broke? She said, no, I'm not broke. Are you sure you're not broke? There's more conversation throughout this season to let it be known, okay, you got some other stuff going on, Olivia. More than what you're saying, because right now she's saying, it's not that I'm broke, I want it all. I've been here forever and a day, and it's mine to claim. Okay. Olivia says that Horace married a 304 just to get even. And Norman said no. He's wanting to get ahead. At least Norman got some sense about the whole situation. So now everyone's showing up. And they're trying to figure out with Varney what's going on. And they're like, why did you allow certain things to happen? He said he didn't really know in full details. And Charles did say, well, Varney did tell me that he had something going on, da-da-da-da-da. And they were like, really? What? How can you say? It's like, is there some loopholes into this whole marriage situation? Maybe we should get a competency test. And he said he already did that. And you guys were his witnesses into his marriage. So he had all that taken care of. And he wanted to protect his shares. So he ended up diluting 10% of the shares from the rest of the crew. They thought it was collectively. No, from each person that's a shareholder. It's been diluted. And they got pissed in regards to that. They're not losing any money. I just really want to know who's doing the work here at Beauty and Black. Because I believe Norman was the business guy, I think. Or was Norman the one that came up with the formula? I forgot which one did. But one was doing the business part, and the other one was doing the actual creating the product. So, I don't know. But who's been doing the work all this time? They're on the board, and they got shares and all this good stuff, and still, the sons, they just show up to the job. What are they doing? So, most of the family, they leave. Of course, Charles is ready to go have a sleep so he can go to the club. He makes it be known and all that good stuff. Did they talk a little bit more? No. Julius, Mallory. Oh, Julius, I said. No, Jules, Mallory, and Varney. They are left. With Roy there, too. Mallory tells Varney, you know, I really want to speak to you a little bit later. We can meet. And then Roy said, no. We all going to meet together if we're going to do this thing. Varney leaves, and then Mallory and Roy are left with Jules. That's what it was. And they were still, Mallory and Roy were still having their banter with each other. And she ends up saying, or Roy ends up saying that Mallory is effing Varney. And Mallory says, lies. And then she opens it up and says that he was messing with the same Negro, with the same 304 as his daddy. Or was that Varney? I don't know. I think at this point, Varney decided to leave after all the foolishness. Roy wants to speak to Jules alone. And she said, wherever y'all go, I'm going to go. Da-da-da-da-da. And Roy was like, no, you're not going to do that. Da-da-da-da-da. She said, look, I'm the fixer. You know, I'm the one that fix your father's ish, your mother's ish, your ish. I am the ish. I said, go ahead, Mallory. But there's one thing that I cannot fix. How about that erectile dysfunction? I said, Lord Jesus. So finally, Jules was able to tame Mallory. Let me go talk to him. They go out there and talk, and Roy was like, you set me up. You knew that she was effing around with my father, and you still gave me this. He was like, no, that wasn't like that. I had no clue what was going on. At this point, Jules was like, look, I can get you a new girl. She's submissive, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And Roy was like, well, you told me that about Kimmy. And that didn't really work out. Jules said, give him a couple of days, and I won't disappoint you. I said, okay. All right. Trackson. He's another driver, security guard. That's the one that Kimmy was with when he was supposed to be taking her to Jules. Then she ran the car off the road. Remember that last season? Trackson calls Jules and says that Angel is in jail. And then Jules says that I'm on my way. He says that that's the one that they caught around that car. Da-da-da-da-da. Mallory. She calls the stripper. Her name is Felicia. Felicia was the one that had Sylvie, or trying to take care of Sylvie, and was going to put her on stage. You know, they had already put a bunch of alcohol in her and all that good stuff. Felicia answered the phone. Who is this? She said, this is Mallory from Beauty in Black. Who? Felicia then cast the shade, but then she had to reduce everything down. The girl that's on the perm box. Oh! Oh my God. Mallory needs Felicia because she needs to know some information. And she said, how much you gonna pay me? I got $1,000 for you. And you don't have to get on the pole to do this, da-da-da-da-da. That's not enough. And all that good stuff. How about I give you $3,000? I'm offering you money that you don't have to go to the clinic afterwards. I said, Mallory! Anyways, Felicia wasn't biting because she was like, I need the money up front. And Mallory was like, look, I need some information up front, and then I can give you some money. I can give you some money in the whole total later on. And she was like, nuh-uh. And she was like, well, that's a deposit. You know, that's how business is. And the girl said, do you know how much money I'll be making every night? And your little chump change, I'm paraphrasing that, ain't gonna do nothing for me. So Felicia ended up hanging up the phone. And then that pisses off Mallory. Did she just hang up on me? Yeah, she did. So she ends up telling Alexa, call her Felicia back 75 times. For what? I didn't get that. Whatever. So, of course, Charles is back at his house, and Varney comes in. And Varney starts talking, and Charles was like, wait, you know what I love? And then Varney said, me? No. You walk in here like your house, like this is your house. So then Varney begins to explain what this whole diluted situation about his stocks. And he's going to be losing a total of $8 million in regards to this whole delusion. And Charles was like, well, then fix it then. And Varney's like, look, you're sitting up here and I'm trying to help you, and you just are not able to do anything about, you're not wanting to participate in fighting for what you won't have anymore. And then Charles begins to twist the conversation. You know, you came into my house was just an excuse. What is your motive? And Varney was like, I had no motive. I told you why I was here, da 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 da. And Varney was like, how can I help you when you cannot help yourself? And then basically he said, you know, how you can help me out is if you go on and smash. And Varney was like, oh wait, I didn't come over here for all that, no. Oh well. So basically Charles then seduced Varney and says, you know, well, I'm going to be in my room. Either you're going to be effing me or not. The choice is yours. So then Varney trying to act like he really put up a fight. The next thing you know, he goes into the room. They go on to smash. And then they're laid there cuddled up afterwards. We'll get to them in just a second. So the ladies make it to Horace's home, which is now Kimmy's home in Horace's. And she's introduced to the whole staff. Now there's one that made a big smile at the end. His name is Glenn. He got a cowboy hat on, I think he does. But anyways, he had this smile. And I thought he was flirting then, but it didn't seem like anything was developing from that. However, by the end of the season, he becomes very integral to one of the plot lines that are happening. And we'll get to that. So they meet the butler, the chef, the sous chef, the cleaning people, the staff, and all that good stuff. We meet, is his name James? It's James the butler. Yeah, that's his name. We go back to Charles' home. And of course, they was cuddled up, him and Varney and all that. And Varney Charles is basically turned over and he's ready to kind of go to sleep. Varney asks, you know, will I ever be enough for you? Because he asks, you know, okay, you're going to sleep and you're going to go to the club. Like, I knew you were going to go to the club, but it's just like, we're here. And none of this, like, change your perspective. It's sex to him. He's avoiding something and not really giving into possibly how he really feels towards Varney. But anyways, he says, will I ever be enough for you? Varney asked Charles that. And Charles said no. Even though he's already... I need Varney to stand up. And I'll probably be saying that for the next couple of episodes in regards to that. And then Varney gonna ask, well, why do I F with you? And Charles says, because I have you wrapped around my finger. He done told you. He don't F with you like that. And he just uses your body in order to get what he needs. You're a sex toy to him. And then Charles gets up to leave. Varney gets up to leave, puts on his shirt, kind of open a little bit. And then Charles was like, you'll be back. That's crazy. And as Charles shuts the door from the bedroom and he's walking out, guess who's there? Roy. I said, what in the world? Did he say something? Yeah, Roy's there. And then that was the end of the episode. Lord Jesus. Crazy things are happening already. Hopefully you guys are streaming. If not, you can be here if you're not able to stream it. I appreciate it. You can share the videos also. I appreciate you for coming here. Tell me your thoughts on what's happening thus far, as far as what I've told you and what you've watched. Let me know. All right, like, comment, and subscribe. Until the next one, peace.